Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Nora Priestley from York University, and although I'm the program manager for a bridging program for business, IT, and HR for new Canadians looking to do some gap training through a bridging program, it is a thrill to actually be doing a general information session about universities this afternoon. I spent lots of years working in admissions recruitment, so this is like putting on an old hat. The challenge is that we have 10 minutes or so today, so I'm going to have to talk really fast to talk about all of Ontario's universities. I'd be a little bit harder pressed if I was speaking about all of Canada's universities, and there's about 88 of them. And we have a lot to talk about just talking about Ontario universities. I'm just going to briefly go through the university system at the undergraduate and graduate level, talk a little bit about applications, how it's done, a little bit about transfer credit and financial aid, because often those are questions that new immigrants, new Canadians want to know a little bit more about. The good news is, and the reassuring news is that all our Canadian universities are excellent. The ones in Ontario are spectacular. They are all solid universities. We have a very good educational system. And it used to be that you had colleges and you had universities. And colleges tended to be of a skills training type of education versus university at a different level. And that has completely changed radically in the last handful of years. We now have colleges and universities doing collaborative programs together. We now have colleges giving degrees. We now have college having one of their campuses, like Seneca at York is right on our York campus. So the world has changed. The University of Guelph, from the city of Guelph, it's at Humber, right here in Toronto. So it's a very, very different environment. So all this blending and everything creates a lot for them to look at. The 20 universities in Ontario. And as you can see, there are a variety of degrees and lots of options for them at the undergraduate level as well as at the graduate level. 2 out of the 3 largest universities in Canada are right here in Toronto. And we have smaller universities as well, such as OCAD, the Ontario College of Art and Design. So we have an awful lot. We have 3 large universities right here in Toronto, and with all these satellite campuses. So I think we have an awful lot of very, very good post-secondary education to offer anybody that is interested in studying. I'm going to talk very quickly about graduate studies because it tends to be very program specific and very diverse. Most universities offer masters and PhDs, although not all of them, and they do offer those, and they tend to be very competitive programs that you apply specifically to that program. And they all have various criteria for admissions, and they might have other tests and qualifications that are needed. For example, if you're doing an MBA, typically there's a GMAT required. If you're doing a law degree, the LSAT is an absolute requirement. And the level of education and what their grades were in their previous university education will vary from program to program. So at the graduate level, it's always best to go directly to the institutions and do the investigation by area of study. And sometimes getting your area of study from the topic this big down to what you're actually looking at doing. And then is that particular stream of masters offered at that university. I once had a wonderful professor, a PhD, once said to me that PhDs were often studying how many fairies danced on the head of a pin. And I thought that was cute, but it also, I think, was a reflection of that often PhD studies is very, very, this thin slice right here is what we're looking at. So therefore, the investigation really has to be done before applying. The good news is at the undergraduate level, there is a central application service, and this is extremely helpful for people. So we have the Ontario University Application Centre. It's been in place for quite some time. It is better known as UAC to those that are us in the acronym world of universities and colleges. We tend to talk in acronyms a lot. But the Ontario University Application Centre allows individuals to apply through one portal and to several universities at the same time. For anybody that is applying to a university who is not coming directly out of high school, they're called a 105 applicant. Now, don't ask me why a 105 applicant and why a high school student is a 101 applicant, but that is unfortunately verbiage that got used and is carried on. So anybody not coming directly out of high school is applying as a 105 applicant. Their application, as of right now today, is about $135 for 3 universities. So you could pick 3 university programs, whether they be 3 programs at one university or 3 very different universities in Ontario. You could choose those for $135. And if you chose to have a 4th program, you'd pay an additional $44. Then each of the institutions have supplemental fees, and those fees will vary from university to university. So it's all laid out on the application form, but as you can see, that is an expensive venture. We haven't even talked about your transcripts and your English language test yet. So again, the need and the encouragement to take a look at universities and see what they're offering is really advisable, so that they're spending their money the best way they can. The benefits of the central application is just the fact that it's all centrally coordinated. You send your information, all your particulars in, and it gets routed out to the universities you've applied to. It is also possible to have official transcripts, arrange for those official transcripts to go into the UAC Application Center, and again, it will get sent out on your behalf to those universities. So that's what you're putting. And the same with English language test. If they're submitting one of the recognized language tests to the application center, it can get sent out. So that coordination is extremely helpful. For some people, though, that won't be what they need to do. They have a very specific interest. They're interested in going to a university that is 1 subway ride away or close to in their neighborhood, and that's the geography is dictating where they're going to go. That's still okay. They're great universities and they all have something to offer. Often universities will have their own application as well, and that becomes a little less expensive, and you're dealing directly with the university. So if your only option is to go to Ryerson, you're going to be able to apply directly to that institution, or certainly look at that institution and see if it's possible. And that allows for things to move very much between you and the institution. It typically takes most organizations, it can be anywhere from 6, 8 weeks, longer, depending on the time of year, to what they're applying to how long it adheres. But we're all nicely set up now, where we give people reference numbers, we have portals for them to go in and check their application. They can even go into their application and see that their transcripts haven't arrived yet, or that we're still waiting for their English language test. And typically, universities aren't going to assess their file until all the documents are there. So it's a great way for that individual to be able to manage their own file and keep track of what's going on. The other big issue, and again, you touched on it briefly here, the idea of I have previous university education from my home country, often called transfer credit or advanced standing. Usually, and I'm going to speak typically now, usually that is done once the individual has been admitted to the university and has accepted that offer of admission. And it often requires, again, typically, different qualifications for different universities, but will require those course descriptions. They will absolutely look at a document evaluation done by an organization such as WES, but universities are usually taking a look at their own. The question is, how does that psychology course from your home country fit into the psychology course we're offering here, right? And it's good to keep in mind that all universities have what we call residency requirements. Before we give you a piece of paper that says you did your degree at our institution, you've done a certain number of courses at our institution. You didn't show up, take 2 courses, and boom, graduate from our university. So those residency requirements will often translate slightly different depending on what the fit is with the courses you took and what you'd like to take. And the other thing to keep in mind, again, generally speaking, if I did a Bachelor of Commerce in my home country, I'm probably not going to be able to do a BBA, a Bachelor of Business Administration here. There's too much overlap. You could do another type of degree, but one where there's an awful lot of overlap isn't quite the fit. So some people will find bridging programs very advantageous because it's acknowledging their university education and just filling in some gap training. Other people are looking to do university studies in a whole new degree, a whole new option, or perhaps they came with an undergraduate degree and they're now looking to do their master's or PhD, and depending on their situation, what fits best. Financial assistance, because university education, although very affordable compared to some countries, it's still an expense. Financial aid in Ontario, better known as OSAP. Not all programs are necessarily eligible, and it is something the person isn't necessarily eligible. I always recommend anybody that's interested in OSAP, even if you had recently been a university student yourself and had taken OSAP, it changes. Please, you know, you have an expertise that now is maybe a couple of years out of date, and I would recommend that they go back through because there have been some good changes. I must admit some of the recent changes to OSAP have been for the better, but I think it's really important that the individual be looking and understanding what's involved. And keeping in mind, or keeping in caution, it is a loan meant to be paid back, and it often does not cover all your living expenses and your university education and your transportation and your books. It's not going to cut it. It's going to be something that supplements another form of income while you're doing your degree. Bursaries and scholarships, though, don't have to be paid back, and they're often based on one of two things: financial need or academic excellence, doing very well. So all universities, and I suspect most of all the colleges do too, we have a pot of money that we give away as scholarships for academic excellence, and we have pots of money based on financial need that we can give away as bursaries, and those are marvelous because they don't have to be paid back. And they could be in increments as small as $100 or $200 right up to $5,000, depending on what the award is. Some they have to pay for, actually apply for, and others automatically come to them. So it can be a tremendous benefit. There is so much for the individuals to think about, and as you can see, I didn't once talk about any of the undergraduate programs. York University has hundreds of them. And which ones can you put together with which ones? And can I do an engineering degree and take some English courses? Or can I take French with my anthropology? All those types of studies are going to depend on the university and the combination. So it's very, very specific. I always encourage people to absolutely use the internet. We've got lots of good information on our websites. They can actually be a little overwhelming. There's a lot of information on the website, so you have to chip through it. Libraries still keep hard copies of calendars that talk about all the degrees and all the course descriptions, as well as internet access, of course. And the other thing I encourage people to do, and I don't care whether you're an 18-year-old planning to go to university for the first time, or you're coming back to university in a new country to do something different, visit the campuses. They are all excellent. They're all marvelous. Go to the campuses. Speak to people. Take a look. Is this where you want to be? What often makes a good university experience and an excellent university experience is you're in the right place. You're in the place that actually had what you thought you wanted, and sure enough, you didn't accidentally land there. They actually had what you wanted when you got there, and that it was an environment that worked for you. Not all of the universities have courses in the evening, for example. York has a big history of having courses at night as well as during the day, and that works for people that have daytime jobs. Some universities have a huge, extensive collection of those, and others don't. These are the types of questions that people have to do because, well, I did my degree as a mature student, so I had a full-time job, 3 kids, 8 loads of laundry, a dog, and a husband. And not necessarily in that order, by the way. I couldn't have done it without him. He was marvelous. But the point is I was able to work on my university degree in addition to the rest of my life. And there's a lot of capacity for that. And often new Canadians, that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to settle. They're trying to get the kids organized and happy and involved in sports. They're trying to improve their own education or system, and they need to have that flexibility. So there's some great options out there. And with that, I will thank you for your time and hope I kept it within the time limit. And we'll go from there. Thank you very much.